Generally, we try to come up with topics that which tell you how you should manage your personal finances for the life ahead, be it retirement or if you're saving for a specific goal, and so on and so forth. But today, we'll discuss on why you should share your financial details with your family before it's too late. From too late, I mean when you're no more into the world. I know we all are a little hesitant about this thought. We don't want to have this thought, but planning this is really, really important. And for that, let's have an expert. We are today being joined by Mr. Arvind Rao of Arvind Rao Associates. Arvind, thank you so much for giving your time to ET Now. I'm sure we have a lot of points to consider and a lot of points to chat about for today. But let's start with the will part. What all things one need to or should be declaring in the will, and is that only property or there's more to that?
Thank you, Srishti, for having me here. And yes, I mean, it's not only about properties. Properties generally is a most important uh, piece of one's life that one is very careful and wants to pass it away. But let's not forget that a lot of money typically also is stashed up in bank accounts, deposits, various bonds, mutual funds, demat accounts, insurance policies, stuff that people keep in the bank lockers, or even personal assets like cars, sometimes friendly loans that you might have given to people. And of course, not to forget, one should always also include stuff like loans if they have taken, if it's either from banks or maybe informal loans. So there is this whole gamut of things that should be part of a will, because if you ask me, will is going to be like the guiding document for the family once a person is no more. And this is all the more significant for those families where there is only a single person who is managing money for all, and the other members are not actively participating in the money bit.
Absolutely get your point, Arvind, and thank you so much for highlighting all of those pointers for our viewers. But starting with properties, how should one go about? Because this is one big concern, or I would say that such a sensitive matter that which can actually create walls between the families. What all to consider while declaring this one?
Uh, and I'm happy you started with properties because we have seen people missing out on few parameters. Like very loosely, people say that this property goes to X, Y, Z. So, a couple of things. The main things that I would like to highlight here is, in addition to describing the property, it is important to also highlight the ownership pattern, because I think nowadays mostly people buy properties in joint names, whether it is with spouse or sometimes with other family members. So it is important to highlight how much of this property is owned by the person who is mentioning this in the will. Along with that, especially in cities, and more importantly in a city like Mumbai, uh, flats are always located in societies. So there are two things. One is the property that you own, and second is the share certificates in the society. Both of them coexist, and hence the will also has to mention not only the property but also the shares in the society, which has to be passed on to the family member. And another extra information, as one of the best practices that I typically tell people to do, is to mention what is the nomination pattern that the person has given in the society. So let me highlight that nowadays it has become a mandatory thing for nominees to be given to societies. So while you are declaring a certain property or wishing that this property should be given to an XYZ person in the family, whether or not the nomination matches with the same person. If it matches, very well. If it doesn't, all the more, it is important to mention that you have nominated ABC, but you would want that this property actually goes to XYZ. So this exercise also sometimes highlights the inconsistencies in the nomination pattern and the will or wish of the person. So this could also be the start point for the person to correct it, so that the nominee should ideally match with the bequest that a person makes in the will for a property.
Absolutely, Arvind. Now shifting focus to banks. Now there too people park a lot of their wealth, be it in terms of FDs, RDs and even lockers. How do I keep their nominees updated with any change that happens there? How important is this factor?
Uh, so let me share with you here what happens is, like I mentioned, will is generally the master document for the legal heirs. And normally when I tell people, especially when it is regarding their bank accounts and FDs, that your will should actually specify or list down the FDs, giving precise information like the FD number, the amount of the FD. If it's a bank account, be specific about what is the account number, which bank, which branch. Typically, people say that why should I do this? Because the balances in these FDs and accounts are all dynamic. I mean, if I write a will today, maybe in 3 years' time, a lot of these will change. Yes, of course, it will. But what happens is, in the absence of this, if you just say that I have three accounts and I want these accounts balances to be given to my ABC, or I have just FDs in this, the people who are now going to look at this document will never be able to be sure that have they covered everything. I mean, where do I start and where do I end? So the moment my will gives precise information about which FD, even if that FD has matured at that point, you walk into the bank and you say that, hey, I have a list of these FDs. The banker will be able to give you updated information that, okay, this FD has matured, it was encashed, and so on. And even with the lockers, I mean, it doesn't make any sense in just saying that locker contents should go to some person. Let it be specified that this locker is either jointly operated or is it singly operated. What are the contents in the locker? How these contents have to be distributed? All these, it is best to give detailed detailed output in the will, because only then it makes sense for the person to execute whatever are the wishes of the person.
Absolutely, Anand. Absolutely, Arvind. One should really look out for all of these pointers. But talking of equity markets now, for the past 2 years, we have seen a lot of interest of the retail investors, especially coming in for this. What about the demat accounts details, and even for a matter, the mutual funds? How important is this to declare as per you?
A very good point, because I think it's public knowledge now that the number of demat accounts that were opened in the last 2 years is practically much more than the total number of demat accounts opened in the last 50 years. So what happens is, in the excitement of opening a demat account, more often, especially in the online era, people tend to forget to nominate. And especially when it is in relation to equity shares, the rules are quite clear that the nominee, there has to be a nominee who gets. And in the absence of a nominee, there is a lot of paperwork that the people left behind who has to do it in order to claim these. So normally what we say is, whether it is demat accounts or whether it is mutual funds for that matter, it is important to leave behind information about, again, what are the kind of funds, where all do you have demat accounts, who is operating it, if there is any intermediary involved who is helping the person operate or manage these MFs or demat accounts, let that person be named in the will, giving details, in the contact details, that in case you find difficulty, although you may name the mutual funds and the demat accounts, but if you feel that an external help is always welcome. So you can give details of the intermediary, saying that you may contact this person who has more details about this. And again, if any nominations have been given in the demat or not, whichever the case may be, let it be mentioned in the will so that people know how to proceed and how to close and claim these proceeds.
Absolutely. Lastly, Arvind, I would like to have your take on insurance, because it is another aspect which people should consider, because they take a lot of policies, especially like the life insurance policy and even more, keeping a particular event in mind. What points to take care over there?
Some of it overlaps with the information I mentioned about the funds and demat accounts, but I think the ones that stand out for insurance policies will be some things like mentioning where is the original policy document located. Imagine, it may be in the locker, it may be in some space in the wardrobe which nobody knows, and that is the most important document for the family member to claim the insurance, because you may have information about everything, but if you are not able to locate the policy document, it becomes really a humongous exercise to then claim. So yes, the document should mention where is the original document. At the same time, again, give details of the person or the intermediary who has helped you take this policy. Also, in case you have happened to take any loans on these policies, be upfront about it, because it should not come as a shock to the family that they are claiming the documents and the company says there is a loan on this. I'm going to deduct this and only this much is going to be paid to you. So along with some basic information like what is the kind of policy you have taken and what is the kind of sum assured that comes with it. Believe me, this information, if it is handy and available at one place for the family, I think it mentally and physically it relieves them a lot of stress, because they don't need to go to like dozen places to get information about all of this.
Okay, Arvind, thank you so much for helping us with that guiding document once you know more, and highlighting all of these pointers for our viewers. It was indeed an insightful conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.